day that I had a hard day at teaching, I would immediately go from my job to a store. And the way I was like coping with hard days was by spending money. But it kind of took like a total restart and being tired of the cycle I was in order to do something about it. My name is Maddie Baker. I'm 27 years old. And this school year, I'm expecting to make $63,000 from teaching first grade in Virginia and doing content creation on social media. I was 22 years old when I first started teaching. This upcoming school year will be my third year in first grade. It has never been about how much I was going to make. It's about the difference I was going to create. When I told her that I wanted to be a teacher, she said, "Don't do it. They do not make enough money." And I think it was just because of the way that she struggled for all of those years. But I'm the type of person that if my mom told me not to do it, naturally, I'm going to do it. I've struggled for a long time of being an impulsive spender. If I saw something that I wanted, I just went to the store right away and bought it. I got myself into really horrible cycles of pretty much using my entire paycheck that month and then also charging things on my credit card. So I would go through coffee drive-thrus every single day. I was buying school lunch every day. I spent a lot of money on my students for.
So we can all look at her situation and relate to her, right? So she makes her first year, she made $50,000. And let me just say, teachers, gotta love teachers, man. You guys have an amazing job. I couldn't deal with kids all day, depending on what age, but definitely the teachers, man, love teachers. Definitely appreciate all of the work that teachers do, right? So her first year, she made $50,000 being a teacher, which I think teachers are just grossly underpaid, of course. Total $63,000 because she does extra work when it comes to her social media account, which I think is great. And she talked about spending and how she would basically use up her whole paycheck. And I think that we all can relate to that when we have been in our situation in our lives where we get paid. And literally before 24 to 48 hours after we get paid, our check is gone. And some of us currently in this moment that I'm talking about this still are in that situation, right? Where you get paid on Friday, you got paid this past Friday, it's now Tuesday, your paycheck is gone, and now you got to wait 2 weeks for the next paycheck. All right, and there's a lot of factors and reasons why that is, but to highlight the fact that you always want to pay yourself first before you then spend all of your check. And we'll get more into that and what that strategy looks like when it comes to the pay yourself first strategy. But you have to get out of the thought process, out of the, situation where you get paid $1,950 is gone within 24 hours, 48 hours. And you only got $50 to your name for the next 2 weeks till your next paycheck. The majority of Americans live that lifestyle. And that is unfortunate, but we have to understand how to strategize to where we can do different things, to deter that from happening and being our lifestyle.
For Valentine's Day and for winter holidays, and I buy them a gift at the end of the year. And all of that stuff adds up, especially when you don't have a lot of money to begin with. I remember just waking up every single day and the stress of finances was just really getting me down. Close to the beginning of my third year teaching, I started thinking about where my money is going and figuring out exactly what I need to do with it. It's a huge misconception to people that teachers get paid over the summer. So I am a 10-month employee, but I'm paid over 12 months. I'm paid once a month. You have to be more specific about how you're spending your money, and you may end up at the end of the month with no money. My husband and I rent an apartment, and so I pay half of our rent. My husband and I do not share finances, which is a little bit non-traditional, but it works really well for us. I also have a car payment each month, as well as groceries, and then the occasional going out to eat with friends. I live 45 minutes away from my school, so that commute requires a lot of gas.
All right, so let's go back and look at her budget. And this is one of the most important things that in these videos is we can actually take a look at someone's budget and break it down. So first and foremost, if you don't have a budget and you're trying to be, better with your finances, then you're starting off in the wrong. You got to have a budget. Budget is just a screenshot, and as you can see right here, it's a screenshot of all of the money that's coming in and going out. That's really it, right? You have fixed expenses when it comes to like your mortgage, your rent, things that don't change. The number is going to stay the same on a monthly basis. And then you have variable expenses, things that change every month, your gas, obviously, groceries, and different things that ultimately like you're spending when you go out to eat, things like that, that's going to change on a monthly basis. But more importantly than anything else, for the most part, what you got to pay for, what bills you got to pay, and how much money you then pay towards it, right? If you need help with a budget, right, my recommendation for you is to go to your bank statement and take a look at the last 3 months and see what you spend your money on, right? Look at everything, right? You can export it from your bank account. You can also do the same thing if you use a credit card, but ultimately in the end, you should know what you spend. And, we have an Excel breakdown spreadsheet, everything that's being spent, per item, account, etc. How much the day it comes out, if it's automatically paid or not. You need to know everything, auto pay or if it's not auto pay, right? But let's break down her budget, right? So Maddie spends approximately $4,695 a month. And if you take a look at it, let's start with the right. Let's start with the blue over here at the housing utilities, right? So that's probably, and she says she goes half with her husband, and they don't have, a joint account, and I'll get to that afterwards. But if you look at the housing utilities, that means that she spends $875 on, her rent or mortgage, depending on if they own a house. And I think they don't. I think they rent. Look at this camera, $790. It says down here that she paid for it with her TikTok savings. Discretionary, $614. That is a friend's wedding, clothes, etc. Extra spending that she did in the month of May of this year. Transportation costs, which is her car note, and her insurance, Ubers and things like that. Food, health insurance. She actually budgets for her teaching supplies, which I think is awesome. Now, do I think that the schools need to pay for this? Absolutely. But we know the best teachers, they put out extra money for their classrooms, and that's also, a blessing for them for sure. Her subscriptions and memberships, $78. Phone bill is actually really good at $55. All right, and then you have, last but not least, her savings and investments, $883. So I'm gonna do a quick math real quick. Let's say she says she makes $63,000 a year. 63,000, divide that by 12 months. So she's bringing in approximately, and this is before tax, $5,200 a month. So if we take the 52, and that's gross, that's not net. It's probably going to be a lot less. It's going to be a little bit less than 52 if you take it in net. But let's just take in $5,000. Let's just say $5,000. If she's bringing in $5,000 a month, then that means that her spending is $4,695. Say $4,700. That will leave her with $700. That will leave her with $300. That is not a great budget. Now, yes, she has a husband, so her husband is doing half on everything. But there's not a lot of money left over when it comes to that budget. The thing that I will say in a positive way is that she is investing saving and investing $883 a month. Now, if you take her salary and you put $5,000, that's not 20%, but that's about 18%, 17 or 18% of her income, which I think is great. I try to save and invest 20 to 25% of my income every time I get paid every month, and a little bit more if we can, right? So the minimum for me is 20%. And I would encourage you guys to always be of the mindset to invest at minimum 10% of your income. And for me, that's gross income. That's not net income. That's not after taxes. That is gross income. So if you are starting off, take 10% of your pay, look at your gross, 10% of that. That's the amount that you should be investing every time you get paid. If you want to do it on a monthly basis, do it on a monthly basis. Whatever works for you. Some people wait for a quarterly. Some people get bonuses in the quarters and things like that. I know a guy that does quarterly investments. But ultimately, in the end, you should be investing at minimum 10% of your income. When you can, start to raise that number to 20 to 15%, 20%, 25%. I mean, if you're a younger person that don't have a lot of responsibilities, I would say you should be up in the 40, 45% savings, because again, if you're in your 20s and you don't have any kids, any responsibilities, you single, you by yourself, there's no reason why you shouldn't be saving and investing a lot of money, right? When you get like me, you got a family, you got children, you got a whole lot of
each month, as well as
then it makes it a lot harder, right? So all in all, the budget looks pretty good. I would say, some of this discretionary spending probably needs to come down a little bit. It would be nice if she didn't have to buy school supplies out of her own paycheck, but sometimes that happens. And then she did spend a little bit extra right here with this camera. So assuming that this is probably not a fixed expense and this is probably a separate, thing that she did in the month of May for the camera, her discretionary spending is probably, up and down every month, then the budget gets a little bit better. So this is her quick budget. And this is what you need to be looking at when it comes to your budget and seeing how much money you have left over when you get paid, as well as every month, on a monthly basis.
Groceries, and then the occasional going out to eat with friends. I live 45 minutes away from my school, so that commute requires a lot of gas. In the month of May, I spent $100 on end of the year gifts and crafts for my students. I think most teachers experience needing to buy a lot of things with your own money. Typically, anything extra that you want is something that you'll pay for. I work in a Title I school in a low-income community. Families doing everything they can to be able to make ends meet and to provide for their children and things that I need in order for my classroom to function, like my organizational supplies. That is never something that I would ever feel comfortable asking a family to purchase. So last summer, I remember spending around $1,000 on getting my classroom more organized and, buying labels and buying a printer so that I can do things in color, buying laminating sheets, things like that. But it definitely is so expensive to make a classroom a place that feels like a second home, which is what I want it to be, because I want it to be a place that my students and I love to be in. So I have found some ways to kind of help myself spend less. I saw some really good lattes being made on TikTok, and I realized I could do that at home too. I've gotten really good over the last year at doing my own nails. It stopped me from going to the nail salon. A lot of planning on the back end, but making smarter choices with just some things that I can do in my daily life.
I mean, I think that's a great point. She stated that she is finding ways to lower her expenses and, learning how to do things on her own. I think that's awesome. I mean, I know that when, me and my wife go and do pedicures, it can get pretty pricey, So if you can learn how to do your own nails, I know that, women specifically like to go and, pamper themselves, which I think is great. But if that cost is getting really, really high, as we know, doing your hair is pretty costly, even getting a haircut from a male's perspective at this point nowadays is pretty expensive. So if you can figure out ways to do your own, do other things to can lower your expenses, that ultimately will help your budget from a monthly standpoint.
I have known pretty much my whole life that I have wanted to be a teacher, and I've always loved playing school. I've always just loved kids and spending time with them. I love being a first grade teacher, and right now I couldn't imagine myself being anywhere else. I felt like I was finally getting a grasp on what this whole teaching thing is all about, and I felt like I could share some of the things that I did in my classroom that I don't feel like everyone does in theirs. Once I kind of discovered that this could be something that I could make money from too, that's driven me even further.
So let's go into that. I mean, I think this is another awesome point, right? So she makes extra money, $5,000 from TikTok, right? And I'm sitting here on YouTube, and what I'm saying to everybody is, you can do more. You can do more. In this day and age, we got so many opportunities out here, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean you need to be on social media making money. What I'm saying is that there's other ways that you can make additional funds ultimately to help you, right? So if you got a regular job, sure, you got, Uber, Lyft. Some people do the ride share thing. Some people do the Amazon Flex. Some people do the, DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats. There's so many different things. You can deliver packages. I mean, there's all of these different what they call gig work that you can do on the side to make an additional income. And it don't necessarily need to be a lot. You can do it once a week, whatever that can work in your schedule, twice a week, to help you then make a little extra money to ultimately assist in your financial situation, right? An extra $5,000 to $10,000 a year can help you tremendously, especially if you're someone that don't have extra money to invest. I would argue, hey, find an extra gig, invest that money, right? Make an extra, $200 a week, totals out to be $800 a month, invest that $800. Ultimately, in the end, making extra money is ultimately going to benefit you in the long term. So sometimes, we complain about how much money we're not making. We want to raise at our job. We want, this next position that's going to ultimately give us more money. I would argue to find ways to make extra money outside of your regular job.
So every summer, I do always spend a lot of money on my classroom and just preparing to have a welcoming space. And then this year, I've spent some money on redoing the teacher's lounge at my school. So the school was able to pay for some things. Anything that they weren't able to pay for, I ended up buying, but it was something that I cared a lot about and want a space for my coworkers to really be able to relax and unwind.
Let's end it here. And I want to, we got this picture of this couple right here, and I'm gonna just put it up because I think that's, pretty great to see a man and a woman that's out here together, moving together, locked arms, and, saving for a house, as well as put money to save for her retirement. My extra little nugget for this video is my recommendation is, if you're married, your finances, in my opinion, should be together. When you combine assets, when you combine resources, it only makes you stronger in the way if you're moving together at the same time, right? So some people, for a lot of reasons that I'm not getting into a relationship conversation, don't like to put all of their money together. They like to have their separate accounts, and they have a joint account. I think that all of the money should be together. If you want to do separate accounts to, do little things on the side for you individually, that's fine. But there needs to be a joint account for bills in the household, for playing things together, for investing together, for a lot of different things. My opinion is, and recommendation is, to put them together. I've done both. I've done separately. I've done them together. I think together is a lot better. So that's just my little nuance, my little, nugget for the additional, she talked about her and her husband are not sharing. They don't have shared accounts. They do things separately. So, I mean, but if that works for you guys, that works for you. So I wish them the best when it comes to their long-term financial success. And she looks like she has a great head on her shoulders, an amazing teacher, and a good, seemed like a really, really good person.